Justin, it's time for us to look in our crystal ball and talk about what we see is coming in AI for 2025. And I want to tell people, if you get value out of this video, share it with three people. We'd love to hear your views as well.
Right. So this is one of those videos where I think everybody who owns a camera and is doing some sort of podcast across America that's even heard of AI is probably doing right now. So I'm really excited either way. Everybody comes from a different angle, and I think you and I have been working with it enough, especially with small businesses and corporate groups that we work with and training and consulting that we're getting not just what's coming out of the news and on YouTube and reports, we're actually seeing it boots on the ground with these companies and how it's affecting them.
It's so exciting to work with both professionals, associations, and small businesses and empowering them on the proper use and ethical use of this, as well as protecting their own data. So let's roll in. What do we have as our first item on the list?
When I've been researching and looking at what's coming in 2025, a name that has been popping up in my feeds quite regularly has been Hugging Face and the CEO of Hugging Face, Clem DeLange. And he seemed to be, from the reports I've seen, pretty spot on with predictions for 2024. So a lot of the articles I read and reports that are coming out, he's mentioned as someone that a lot of people are watching for 2025. And just from what I've seen in industry and across various industries, and what I'm really hearing through YouTube, social media, and even from some of the organizations themselves that develop these, he seems to be a pretty strong candidate to follow. And one of the things that you and I have been talking about through 2024, partially with can we trust generated content like deep fakes, and how is it affecting our marketing, or how is it being used? Is it being used ethically? Are people making sure it's accurate? And so one of his first predictions was that 2025 might see the first public protest associated with AI, which I don't think is too far off, because we saw in the presidential election how AI was used in either in parody or by people acting maliciously to clone voices to create misinformation one way or the other. I think it was done on both sides, even if it wasn't from the candidates, from people pulling from either side. We saw a lot of people like the Mr. Reagan videos where it was parody, but it did fool a lot of people, which sparked a little bit of outrage. His concern is that, for what he's looking at is we're going to see potential protests maybe on displacements with jobs, because I think 2025 and the fourth quarter of 2024, we've started to see Amazon, a few other companies are starting between robotics and AI powered tools and algorithms that they're starting to reduce their organic workforce, their people, and either replace them with robots, such as in Amazon shipping and warehousing, and even on shipyards. We've seen Japan and China where they have automated a lot of the physical moving of containers and actually moved a lot of their operators into offices and rooms virtually, and then they're outsourcing the actual movement of containers via robotics and AI. Or we're going to potentially see AI misused by the authorities, sparking public outrage, whether this is in advertising and the application of it somehow that we feel breaches our security, or even to the point now where one of the theories with the drones upstate in New Jersey that is catching on is that this is a kind of rogue, not Terminator style, but kind of a rogue project where, the merging of AI and UAS, which is unmanned aerial systems, has kind of gotten out of control and gone haywire, more like a short circuit, not much Terminator. And that's a theory that's starting to pick up on social media. And whether it's true or not, that's one of those scenarios where you really just have to have people believe it, and that could spark outrage. So you and I were saying I think we're going to see some cases go this to the Supreme Court involving AI, but we might hit protests first, according to him.
Absolutely. And of course, anyone who's searching Google goes, it's harder to find accurate information now. I mean, there's more and more content on the web that's AI generated, and a lot of it done in a sloppy way where it's not very accurate. We've now got a multiple levels of problems of getting accurate data. We've got the media that is mostly commentary and's lost all commitment to accurately giving information. Justin, I was just talking to Greg Fishel, that's a weatherman I get to work
Mhm,
with, and a journalist took great pride in you not being able to figure out what his bias was, and now
mm,
they've got a flag behind him on it. So we've got that done, which is the human condition. Then we've got the deep fakes occurring and coming out
mhm,
more. Then we've got a lot of people who don't trust the government. It seems like more than ever before. And then just being able to find out what happened. This is information overload with
mhm,
confusion. So I think in the human condition now is we have to be more careful as professionals to be vetting the content we're repeating of the accuracy of it. Like you said, even with the drone, okay, this is hearsay, frame it right. I
mhm.
don't know this. So that's one of the things that is a big issue.
And one of the things you've alluded to as well that I think is important is we haven't seen riots or protests, but we have seen, with the Actors Guild, some strikes when certain Hollywood production companies talked about using the likeness of actors to, with AI. One that you and I have talked about in the past is how they've used the likeness of Mark Hamill when he was younger in The Mandalorian, Disney using it to create a younger Luke Skywalker. And I think that was done so well, it scared a lot of people. So we've seen some strikes there, not full on protests, but one area that I'm starting to see both in workforce development and even on the consulting side involves hiring, and a lot of companies now haven't completely outsourced their HR and hiring process to AI, but they're heavily using it for screening. And what we're finding is there's a lot of claims of bias, issues with, the keywords that are being selected. And so a lot of job seekers right now are already incredibly frustrated with the process. We've even seen it unfortunately with the healthcare incident with the CEO in New York recently, where there's claims that AI was used to deny, prescriptions and certain services,
Heavily,
and
heavily.
so
They seem to
right,
be the leader in using AI to come up with reasons to deny. And then the
mhm,
dock workers, of course,
right,
going on strike because of automation. So that pressure is probably not going away because I
right,
just was checking in with a gentleman that works hard to keeping up with jobs all around the country and help people find jobs. And he's going, some cities don't even move there because it just seems
mm,
like all they have is layoffs. This is where we all have to get smarter of finding how we fit into that. Where's that
mhm,
human condition still needed? Where are we polishing those human skills, the conflict skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to talk on a camera, the ability to get in front of people? I've talked to people job hunting and goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be in front of a human being and I'm
mm,
not prepared how to handle that." So those are things where I recommend people need to keep working on improve, and you and I keep building courses to help that as well. So what
mhm,
are those skills you have that you can sharpen that give you that personal competitive where it takes sweat equity, where it takes courage and takes effort to do it? That's the area to move in because if it were easy, everyone would do it. So that's
right.
to me one very important piece.
And so the last comment I'll make on that is it sounds like there are already some smoldering fires near some powder kegs, and so if you can imagine if he's right and there are significant job displacements in 2025, and then more people are heading to the hiring process only to, bottleneck these issues, I could see where that's something where you would have some public outrage.
For people listening in the job hunt, the thing is, build your network, make an
Right.
effort. Remember what I say in my job hunting, the person who lists the job is the loser. The smart manager's finding the person before the job is even listed. So you've got to be working that and building those contacts and also asking, how do I need to retool? What's the new need to adjust and build up skills as well?
Similarly, along those lines, his next prediction involved market impact. What we're starting to see now is there are certain companies that are really embracing AI. There are some reports coming out that although executives are heavily investing in AI, the hype is starting to die down. You start to see, if you have two similar companies beside each other, the company where AI is heavily invested in, however, frontline managers are either not using it or they're not promoting it. You're starting to see a lot of the workforce starting to kind of glaze over on AI and lose the excitement on it. And that's really because they're not using it often. So they're not seeing the impact of what it can do for their productivity. Whereas you see another company that the pendulum swings the other way and they're heavily using it, and they're either keeping their workforce and putting hiring freezes in place and finding where they can expand with their current workforce, or you're actually starting to see some companies where they're taking the high performers, heavily training them on AI, and then laying off a portion of their workforce because the high performers who are trained on AI and have a high AI literacy are actually doing the work of what a team once did. This pendulum is going back and forth, and that's really starting to affect how companies are interacting with AI already. But then you're starting to see where these companies who did not invest and they looked at it kind of a passing fad, and they kind of reacted to the hype in the way of it's a passing craze. You're starting to see them either go out of business. You once had a great product, but if you don't keep up with the times and continually develop, Redbox is another one, kind of like Blockbuster was at one point. And so if you don't keep up with the emergent trends, then eventually they fall prey to everything. Stock prices fall, the same old story from there. And so you're starting to see that happened to some companies with AI. And so another one of his predictions is that, you know, companies start to fail because once they get to a certain point, it's kind of a critical failure to where by the time they really realize what they should have done, it's too late as far as their evaluation is. And so his prediction for 2025 on that is that we're going to see some companies fall because they did not either invest in AI or they didn't invest in their workforce.
That's exciting because we've gotten to work with some small businesses where they're already seeing enhanced productivity and figuring out which are the employees that are already competent and picking up those tools. And I guarantee they're the ones that will probably be kept on the list, and the ones that aren't will probably be dropping off.
And the trend goes here again when you're looking at talking about companies adapting. The next one is with robotics. So
Yes.
we're really seeing some cool things now. I saw actually a video earlier today of driving ranges in golf. They have robots now that can hit almost a perfect tee, and they're calibrated to a point where they can learn how to golf better, and they're using them, for training and lessons. But robotics is something that I think is going to explode in 2025.
Yeah.
If you've even seen what some of the companies in China are developing, it's almost frightening how realistic, and not just realistic in the prosthetics, but just the movement of some of the robotics or the robots that they're working on. And then two, what you've seen with Elon Musk and Tesla with the Tesla bot, and even to the point of they're developing and using AI to actually determine and develop new fibers. There was one I saw this week where it looks almost like caulk or a silicone based substance where when you apply electricity to it, it constricts just like a muscle, and it can lift some pretty significant weight. And so what you're seeing now is being able to mimic the anatomy, the structure of the human body, and create realistic robots that could actually outperform even the most athletic human, and done so in a way that mimics the size to where ideally you could get to a point where it's almost Westworld, where you have robots that are indistinguishable from humans. And so that's something that he says, and I really agree with him on that, just in what I've been following, in that we're gonna see advancements there when you start to apply AI into the robots and what they're able to do. And so one of his predictions is that at least 100,000 personal AI robots will be ordered in 2025. Elon Musk is a little more optimistic about that, but right now, as far as here in the States, the Tesla bot is one that he's talked about. He wants to see one in every home eventually, and so I don't think that's really unrealistic, depending on the price. I believe I've seen that within the next year or so, you could realistically get your own Tesla bot for I think 16,000.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. I want to also bring up the uncanny valley. I wrote an
Hmm.
article on it. We'll put in is they're being smart in making sure if you these robots don't look too human. And if you want to understand that, look up my article on the uncanny valley. And the concept is so far when we get it too close to human, it seems like we have a visceral reaction that's negative. So that's why, if you notice the making of the robots, yes, they might look a little creepy, but they aren't trying to make them look just like a human being. And that's, I think, a smart move to
Hmm.
circumvent the uncanny valley. And I'm not sure we truly know why we're put off. One of the theories is as a human being, we evolved to know when a human being's dead. And because this triggers that, we have a primal response to it to stay away from it or be
Hmm.
concerned of it. So that's one of the features when you're noticing them. Yes, they made breakthroughs in the hands and everything else, but the facial features, you know, they're the main people generating the robots are not trying to put a perfect face on it. And that's
Hmm.
probably because of this. They are paying attention. They need to get people comfortable with this so that they'll want to have it or work next to it or be in their homes. And like Japan, that has such a massive aging community, look,
Hmm.
if you can get people better taken care of by
Hmm.
having robots, I'm for it.
Right, and that is something that's something that I've been following and I think is brilliant. Whereas with the aging community in Japan, they are working, and I say Japan as in the government is working at providing actual, we think we think kind of Furby, in America, but something similar to that where it's AI powered and it can do
Yeah.
anything from, help order food to if there's an emergency, contact emergency services or their loved ones, to it's a companion.
Yeah.
And
And
if you think
monitoring them, say, hey,
right,
that cough sounds serious. Should we
mhm,
contact somebody? And
and
I
you
think
think
people will
yeah.
adapt to that.
Oh yeah, and I think it's something really I think that's something that should be applied, worldwide, really, because you think of some conversational AI like Microsoft Copilot, and again, just to use the joke because in my generation understands it, put Chat GPT or Microsoft Copilot in a Furby, then you've got a companion you can actually have a real conversation with. And even, for uh citizens that maybe have concerns about Alzheimer's and
Mhm.
are alone and want to stay cognitively sharp. You think having an intelligent conversation, throughout the day, even if it's conversational AI, that could mean the difference between, cognitive decline or extending, challenging your cognition and really keeping a healthy mental state.
I remember it was about 10 years ago when I got the first Amazon Alexa, and I put one in the bedroom, and my wife came in the bedroom and she goes, "Oh no, I want to move into a log cabin." And a month later, I'm going out the door to do training, and I said, "What did you say, honey?" And she said, "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Alexa." And I went, "Well, we went from, oh no, this is absolutely terrible, to seeing the value and
Mhm,
how it adds as well." So I do think we're going to see more adoption and integration. So there's all new technology, there's
mhm,
good and bad, and we need to be aware of it, but we need to be surfing in these new
mhm.
waters, not trying to control the ocean or ignore it.
And that Uncanny Valley article is really good. It can be found on your LinkedIn, and it's a really good one, and it proves a good point. I think eventually we're gonna move in that direction. Right now, I think they're really trying to ease it in because of that concept. That was perfect how you put that. As to the shock value, they're kind of, to use an old comparison, boiling frogs in that manner. And it's really interesting to me how we're still stuck on Terminator, and The Matrix, where, people go that angle because, when I think about what I've seen with AI, what we've seen with robotics, I tend to think more the angle of, say, Ex Machina with the 2014 movie with Oscar Isaac. You're thinking David from Prometheus, in the Alien series, maybe not,
Those are good
the
movies too.
extent that he's going, and kind of going more that route rather than these Terminators, walking around blasting everybody.
Right.
Even to the point, I had a conversation with a business owner today, and they're one who, really big into the movie scene, but they've come a long way. I've been working with them on AI, and we were discussing a show that I don't know how many people are familiar with. It's an older show, but Person of Interest, where you
Mhm.
look at,
Yeah.
what happens when, you have a sentient AI or an AI that's so good at what it does that it's near sentience, but then you have adversarial AIs where more than one happens to develop. And then you have, competing companies, or you have companies where they each have their own AGI or, eventually ASI, and each of them kind of have their own agent, and we'll talk about agents later. And so I think, Terminator's so old fashioned, and, Westworld, a lot of people go that route, which is kind of on the Terminator side. But I really do think that once these companies get people used to the concept of robot, then I think they're really gonna start going, that route. I don't think we're gonna go full Bicentennial Man, Robin Williams back in the day, but, I really do genuinely think that once they get the public comfortable with the advancements that have already happened and been happening in 2024, I do think it's only a matter of time before we start to get some robots that are really indistinguishable, at least on the prosthetic side, from people. But I think we're still a few years away from that for the reason you mentioned. I think it's going to freak a lot of people out if we just rush right into that.
Yeah, you got it. And then what was the movie where the guy was building a relationship with his movie? Was it Her or She? Her, wasn't it?
Her,
Yeah, that was it.
Joaquin Phoenix.
2013.
Right.
Absolutely. That's still another good
And
one.
that movie has been discussed in more than one article with the advances in conversational AI. Looking at it that way, and it's funny, it brings up, Bicentennial Man with it. If you're not familiar with that, as a Robin Williams, where an android eventually becomes human through augmentation and things like that. I think it was one of the first movies that really tackled the the process of an android or an artificial intelligence, falling in love,
Mhm.
her, it was, he fell in love with the AI. But, I mean, we're already starting to see some interesting developments societally in that regard, so I don't think we're off if it hasn't already been done, I don't think we're off from somebody professing their love for an AI.
Mhm.
I have a feeling it's probably already been done, we're already
It
there.
it it it's already occurred in Japan. Someone, I think, married one of their, AI bots, if you Google it, but, eh
Not surprised. The next one is that he's predicting is breakthroughs in biology and chemistry, which
yeah.
which that's definitely gonna happen. The most recent Nobel Peace Prize we saw with DeepMind and, AlphaFold, it's phenomenal what we're seeing, especially, and we're gonna talk about, quantum computing later. When you look at the merging of quantum computing with AI, like DeepMind and AlphaFold, the fact that Iron Man developing a brand new element isn't that far off anymore,
Mhm.
and how we're able to run just an insane amount of simulations to develop new proteins, new different types of both genetic and scientific particles and substances. I mean, and it goes really, this goes well beyond biology and chemistry on the organic side, but if you can imagine what the development of new types of alloys can do for space travel, for manufacturing, and, even down to, say, drastically reducing the production cost and the environmental cost to producing, EV and batteries. It's just I really can't see a limit, and really with quantum computing coming into it, I can understand where these claims of everybody will live to 120. I can really see where you could believe that just because of what it can do to medicine and healthcare. I could see, not immortal, but extending the life because I believe it was Germany, but there's some studies in Europe where they're actually merging this with the development of artificial or synthetic organs. So you can imagine if we get to a point where you can just buy a heart off the shelf, not have to wait on a transplant list. It's not hard, to believe that you could greatly extend your life.
The biggest breakthrough is being able to give the ability of people using their mind to control things that's
Hmm.
occurring. And that's one of Elon's businesses
Hmm.
that's extraordinary. I mean, just imagine the potential, especially for veterans and stuff that have been disabled or someone who's a quadriplegic,
Right.
being able to enhance their communication. So I think that's going to keep moving forward because it has so much tremendous benefit, but also payoff.
Hmm.
Again, it's all driven by money and to some degree, and you want to see that something that will help society also is profitable so that they'll put the money behind it. As we teach in our AI training, the AI winners occurred because the funding went away
Hmm.
most of the time. And so you really do want things that better society also are profitable for sustainability. And that's to me one of the other frontiers is biological enhancement. And Kirschwall talked a lot about that. You can look him up
Hmm.
as a futurist, but I think we are seeing it in grounded small steps. And that
Right.
I think will continue in 2025 as well, the integration of the human with it. And then now they're doing some testing with neurons. They're using
Hmm.
T cells to grow brain neurons and then being able to get some basic computing movement action
Hmm.
out of it. Now that gets kind of creepy. That's another frontier occurring, which will then
Hmm.
be balanced out with what are the ethical movements we should have. So all of this is moving simultaneously in 2025.
And that is pretty exciting and terrifying at the same route. And to keep going on the movie reference, and you're really kind of almost getting into some cyberpunk stuff here with, Ghost in the Shell. If you remember Johnny Mnemonic, the
Yeah,
old
I love that
yeah,
movie.
where realistically though, Neuralink is the first step. And when you think about it, uh, not just being able to control things, but when you're getting into a point where you could potentially even, one concept is where you can stream sound directly to your brain without,
Yeah.
headphones. And but you think about it with certain, not just government, but just with certain fields and disciplines, to think that you could almost have, realistically, to think that you could almost have a Johnny mnemonic where you have an external hard drive with you, a bioorganic, and then just, full prosthetics to where you could potentially not just an arm or a leg, because those are, those prosthetics with Neuralink are, that's going to explode. But, for someone who's lost all function, to be able to use something like an exoskeleton or something like that, that Neuralink controls, is just phenomenal at what we're getting, into.
Another big piece is augmented reality. We've seen that
Right.
when Google Glass from Google came out, it was too ahead of its time. We weren't ready for it. It spooked us. Then Pokemon came out and we
Mm.
got accustomed to an augmented reality. And now Zuckerberg's coming out with new glasses. Watch those because I think we're going to get some form of augmented reality. I still
Mhm.
have not given up on the metaverse. I just think we need more computing and applications of it because that idea of being able to be in a virtual meeting where you have more of a 3D sense versus the
Mhm.
Hollywood squares of Zoom. I think we're going to see that come back at some point as the processing and quality improves. I wouldn't put that on the shelf and give up because that
Right.
ability to virtually meet, Second Life, I think, still running. I haven't checked in on it, but I think do not throw that out. And
Right.
as another world where if we can meet and have a sense of more interaction that
Mhm.
feels more 3D, I think that will be less fatiguing than the Hollywood squares process of Zoom because a lot of people get very fatigued of having a bunch of faces on the screen
Right.
working with it. So I do see that maybe next year or the year after it coming back into the fold.
And that's a perfect example too, because you think of spy movies and, what if Jason Bourne could walk down the street and, it's popping up who's an asset, who's a threat, and things like that. But we're really getting to that point now to where when you think about it, we already have different types of earbuds that can feed, AI into, you think about being able to have a real conversation with Chat GPT, or even, right now, Microsoft Copilot, you can have a
Yeah.
live conversation, have it in your ear. And so, to be able to have,
ChatGPT and Google right now in the
right.
current version. I got them right here.
Mhm.
We can
And
talk
and
to
so
them.
can you
Yep.
imagine having a Mojo lens
Yep.
connected with ChatGPT to where not only are you getting fed the information live, but you can see the display. It's phenomenal that we're at a point in human history where we can actually have micro displays on something as thin and small as a contact lens. And of course, too, his one of his final predictions was with collaboration just the ability for anybody, again, riding the wave, anybody to build. With Mr. Jensen with NVIDIA, he said that, in his thought, coding is dead in a way, because what AI is going to do is it's going to take coding, C++, Python, and make the new coding language English, to where as long as you can prompt and work with an AI, you can code. And so it's only natural that the CEO of Hugging Face would say that, he predicts that the user base of Hugging Face will rise to 15 million AI builders, and he includes a significant increase again with OpenAI, which we talk about in our classes, compared to even Pokemon Go, to Instagram, to TikTok. The increase within a month of users in OpenAI shattered all records in how fast people flocked to that platform. And so, if he's talking about another significant jump, that is monumental, because if they've already shattered the records, to think that, we could see a further push, whether out of necessity because of job displacement, or because the impact and benefit of it in 2025, the tools that are rolling out are just so critical to success, that he feels we're going to see significant movement toward platforms like OpenAI and Hugging Face.
There are other things that are important to realize is what Facebook's doing with a open source version of AI. People need to be cautious of over control of AI because that
Hmm.
can kill innovation. That can get it so only a few companies control everything. And as we know, we've read articles that the government was moving towards a future of over control of AI.
Hmm.
And it looks like that may be shifting away with the new administration, where they're realizing we need the innovation
Hmm.
because of open source AI, then there are more people that can learn it and teach themselves on their own. And that creates a condition of one or two companies aren't controlling everything. So this is important that people still are focusing on we want some balance for checks and balance for safety for the public, but we don't want so much over control that it's killing AI. And I think, Justin, this is happening in Europe. I think
Hmm.
America right now is a hotbed for AI because Europe has gone to over control. Why would you develop AI there? Why not bring it to America? And so, as citizens, we need to not stay passive and make sure our legislators and our people in office are getting education and not just listening to the biggest check, because that's very dangerous. Open source is so
Hmm.
important to the vitality of people learning, collaborating, and working together. And so much has already been developed because of that.
Hmm.
OpenAI, I still think, needs to change their name to Shut Down and Make Money AI. And I think Zuckerberg, I want to give hats off. He's leading the charge and making it open. So that's something very important we need to keep a watchful eye on and make sure that occurs. We need our youth being able to easily get access and education on this.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, because when you look at in Europe with GDPR, when you look at governance in AI, they're the three main players, really, when you look at official policy, are the United States, the European Union, and China. And they each have their own reason. America, yes, for innovation, but just as much to develop in response to threats from geopolitical enemies such as China. China's purely innovation. How can they, one, become a global leader? They want to control AI. They want to be the first to reach AGI, to also counteract some of the issues they're having with a declining workforce. In order to maintain one of the top three spots in exports, they have to remain competitive. And if they have a declining workforce, they have to figure out AI and robotics in order to remain competitive. They have to also, just like the United States, they have to remain competitive for warfare, and because anybody else who gets too powerful is a threat to their mission. Whereas, European Union, yes, they look at it innovation, yes, they look at it as a threat, but still they claim that one of their biggest reasons for having a well thought out policy is, of course, to protect their citizens' information. But it's really interesting. Yes, I like open source, and in a perfect world, it's great. I think some of the reports that I'm seeing is that it's becoming, in a way, a double-edged sword. Now, yes, I think closed AI might be a good name for them, since they're going that route. But what I am seeing in research and hearing is that countries like China are taking advantage of open source
Mhm.
to where they're going in, they're seeing how it works, and then they're, you know, true to their nature, they're reverse engineering, they're taking it, putting their stamp on it, and they're, getting ahead in the game on, you know, building it into theirs. It's going to be very interesting to see, Doge, how Elon Musk, who, as we all remember, was one of the authors of the white paper calling for regulation and for us to slow down on AI development
Mhm.
because of these concerns. And then Vivek Ramaswamy, how he's going to come in. He's really big, focused on AI as well. One, for innovation, for the economy, but then two, he's very concerned about how it's going to affect national security and efficiency, things like that. So it's going to be very interesting because, again, it's going to be interesting to watch how countries such as North Korea, which have despite their GDP and their size, they have a pretty significant cyber presence in the world. How China, even Russia, how they're going to take these open source models and they're going to take, whatever information they can get and what they're going to build compared to what we have over here in, more of the Western countries. So it's going to be interesting. And I can really see where there's a lot of concerns about the next, if there's a next global conflict, how that's going to look, how the cyber environment's going to look with AI introduced into whatever is already being done with different teams, government teams. So let's just hope that, the next year, 2025, we can all hold hands and get along and that we don't have to find out what that looks like.
Yes.
Outside of his predictions, just based off various research that I've seen, various industries are already being affected. Customer service is being heavily affected with, of course, increased conversational AI, chatbots, things like that. But I think in 2025, one of the biggest topics that a lot of people are holding their breath for and a little anxious on were reports on Google Willow and what it was able to do. And of course, Google Willow, we know for a while Google's been working on quantum chip technology and
Mhm.
quantum computing just because of what it can do. For example, the benchmark that's just recently been announced is that Willow was able to complete a computation in under 5 minutes that would take a supercomputer 10 septillion years, which I'm not even going to attempt to explain what a septillion is.
Right. But it's
It's just beyond what we can fathom with our brains. This is a game changer because if we have computers that are able to complete tasks and solve equations that would take a supercomputer longer than the universe might have even existed, then when you take and apply an AI to that and, potentially, let's go AGI or the singular
right.
ASI, it's over. And a lot of people used to with an ASI, and I'm not it's not over in, something's gonna happen. It's over in our understanding of
Yeah.
being able to understand anything because
Right.
the classic example of AI is an ASI, artificial superintelligence, wouldn't necessarily have a reason to even bother us. They love to talk in the Terminator. We're saving, humanity from itself, or we have to safeguard humanity from itself when really it's kind of similar to, I want to put in a new sidewalk to my house and there's an anthill in the way. Do you build the sidewalk in a way that goes all the way around the anthill, knowing that the next time it rains, they're probably going to be right on your sidewalk? Or do you just build the sidewalk the way that's aesthetically pleasing and the ants will move? You
Right.
know, do we even do we just disregard the ants completely? They're in our way. And so that used to be kind of how, ASI was described. And now it's to the point where if it has that much power, we're not even a thought. It's a thing of, oh, there was a pile of ants there. I just built the sidewalk. We can't even comprehend what its goals would be. and much less to have the audacity to think that we can control it. And so, of course, it's phenomenal technology, and it's incredibly exciting because you think about what that could do for humanity and moving us forward. But at the same time, it's a thing of what kind of ethical guidelines are in place. Can we even begin to humor the fact that we could control something like this that could outsmart us in a fraction of a second? It's very interesting. That's going to be something very interesting because if we can put the proper guidelines in place, then that's something that could just turn the world upside down in ways we can't even fathom.
One
Go
thing on
ahead.
quantum computing is we really want, as we're both Americans, America to
Mhm.
be feeding and leading that. There's no question. The best way I describe it is the person who gets fully functioning quantum computing is just handed a master key to open many encryption systems that would have
Every.
taken forever with traditional computers. So it's important for people to realize we want America, as if for those listening that are American, to be the leader on that. They're going to get a master key, and not for
Mhm.
everything because they're already trying to anticipate quantum proof encryption. But
Mhm.
this is a big deal. Now, it still could be 5 years off before we get all that shaken down, but they are making progress. They do see the value and all that fits together. And I want several things I want to make sure we cover is text to video and agents, because
Mhm.
those are two things we're going to really see coming up in 2025 right in our face, and it's happening now.
Right, and that's important too when we're talking about something like Google Willow, because say we put in the proper guidelines and like Doctor Strange, where there's one path out of billions, we have that one path to where even if we have an ASI, it works with us and we're able to collaborate. What does that mean for access? Are you and I going to be able to access? How expensive is that gonna be? Or is it going to be that not only one nation controls a bit, but a corporation within that nation, or a government controls that? And so those are a lot of questions too of if we can achieve this, who has control? Is it something like blockchain to where no one really controls it, but then who regulates it? Or are we all going to have to essentially sign up to one corporation that essentially has the key to global finance, to global markets? And so when you look at something like text to video and agents and agentic AI, you kind of get into, and this is something I've thought about, you kind of get in a way into Trekonomics with Star Trek. Do we get to a point to where the computing and the AI is so good at what it does that we don't have to work and production is completely handled by the AI? There's no reason for humanity to work, so we just build starships and go explore the galaxy. Is that how we get to Star Trek? When you look at that, you start to look at, I think of interview Martin you and I did with Mr. Amerlin, and it's, what's our purpose
Right.
at that point? And Elon Musk has, I've heard him discuss that as well. Is we also have to be careful because if we get too advanced too quickly, then humanity risks losing purpose, which can have catastrophic, you know, impacts on society, and that's getting down the road. When you're moving from quantum computing, and you really have to start talking about AI agents and agentic AI. And if you spend any time on LinkedIn, you would have at least heard both of these concepts. And I hear a lot of people get them mixed up where they think they're one and the same. But when you really look at it, an AI agent, AI
Yeah,
agents
define
are
an AI agent for people, because if they
right.
don't know it, that's the next thing. And that's
Mhm.
something where we're starting to see the beginnings of it. You still want to make sure you've thought it through well, so it doesn't say, I'd like to have a French dinner, and it buys you a ticket on airline to France.
Mhm.
But let's give people the definition of that, because I think agents we're gonna I really think we're gonna turn the corner in 2025 in small ways of seeing more agents. So let people understand that versus just a prompt in ChatGPT.
Right. AI agents are looking at an autonomous software system that's designed to perform tasks on behalf of the user, in where you're really looking at automation. In 2024, this could have looked like Microsoft Power Automate or connecting Chat GPT to, say, Zapier, to your social media or to a certain task. Whereas instead of having to have separate accounts and connect them and make sure everything connects together and runs smoothly, an AI agent is one to where you can really give it a task, and from beginning to end, it completes that. In a way, it can perceive its environment, reason about it, make decisions, and take actions based on what the desired outcome is. Whereas agentic AI refers to AI systems that can both generate outputs but also take actions based on those outputs. So, really, these are systems that are designed to handle more complex and dynamic environments compared to what you would consider traditional AI systems. You think about, agentic AI as, planning trips, acting as virtual caregivers, or even being applied in something like supply chains, to where they can in real time optimize based on the different factors and what's going on. And so it's kind of a more advanced autonomous reason. And I say autonomous, not to say, AGI, or where it's that, sentience. A lot of people think, sentience. We're not talking about sentience. We're just talking about an understanding or a programming to such a level that it's able to reason based on how it was trained and complete certain tasks. Again, we're starting to see AI agents that can perform specific tasks, from per se scheduling meetings, or basic supply chain management, or personalized customer service. We're starting to see that. We're starting to see the impact that those agents are having on, say, the customer service industry. And, they're still not perfect. You still hear of issues with those. They're still working on those. I think before we really see advanced agentic systems, they really have to tackle AI agents. But I really do see, 2025 AI agents becoming a lot more streamlined, a lot better, more powerful. And then you really starting to see them move more heavily into agentic AI from there.
Last is just the text to video is starting to roll out finally. And of course, that's, I don't think we're going to see full movies overnight, but it's coming down the pike.
Hmm.
And we've got bits and pieces and stuff, and there's even platforms where they're going to be testing out. I'd like a movie that does this,
Hmm.
this, and this. Would you build it for me? So this is something worth watching and playing with when you can. And of course, that will involve, if you've taken our AI training and understand prompts, you'll be able to map that on to the text to video. But I think we'll see some real progress in that more. It's already happening in 2025. So it's something to watch and something to be aware of, and dip your toe in it if you see an opportunity for it. I
Hmm.
think we've covered, I'm looking at my own notes. I think we got the main things. I
Hmm.
invite people, if you see something we left out, of course, we did mention Bitcoin, blockchain, and things like that. Blockchains are not going away. That's another thing. We, of course, know we went over $100,000 for a Bitcoin, but I think there's utility in the value of a blockchain system that, for especially for supply chain, that's being implemented. So we'll see some of that going on. I'm excited to see. That's something I have a lot of interest in. I'm very hopeful for America in the coming year. It looks like we have a number of people going, hey, we better get our act together because there are other forces outside of America aggressively competing with us. And so we want that balance between safety, but also
Mhm.
ingenuity. And if we don't have enough freedom and openness, you won't have the ingenuity. All the look, large companies have been built on buying out smaller companies because
Mhm.
they can't be innovative enough. And that's where I think it's exciting to see that we have some people realizing we've got to create the space for the small, innovative businesses. We've got to have the room for that, or we'll die. It'll be what I used to call, when I was at IBM, a case of cognitive inbreeding. When it gets too hierarchical with too much
Mhm.
bureaucracy, it kind of feeds on itself and it can't be innovative. And I think we've proven we've got to have room for that in the future. I want to close with your and my personal advice of, as an individual, how do you stay competitive in 2025? We've covered a lot, from probably inspiring people to scaring them in our show today. And so I want to ground it with, what's your and my advice for the individual to stay competitive? And I'll start with mine. Build those human skills. If you
Mhm.
aren't good with public speaking, if you aren't good with handling conflict, if you aren't good, if you need to improve your ability to critically think. Are you in a echo chamber in your life? I'm always looking for ideas that might annoy me, might offend me, and then move into them to go, is that one of my shadows that has control over me? And I see growth that needs to occur every single day, where I'm going, I've got another blind spot. That ability to shift reference, to see through other people's eyes and perspective and empathy, and those qualities to me are critical. Improving speaking skills, improving being comfortable on a camera. I think this is one thing every person in their career should be doing it. Why? Because it takes work. Something that takes
Mhm.
sweat equity and takes courage gives you a competitive advantage, because I can't just write a check, Justin, and make you a better speaker. You actually have to make an effort, and you have to biologically move. So that's my vote. It's one area. And of course, play with the stuff like we teach in
Mhm.
the class. I did the training, you and I, working with accountants, and got them to look up some recipe ideas or cooking and stuff, and start playing with them and getting on the court and the experience. So, Justin, what else do you see we can do, or what, as an individual, to stay competitive?
And I agree exactly with what you just said. In addition to that, we're getting to a point where you have to learn. You have to continually learn. And I would say download on your, Android, on your Apple, your iPhone, download Microsoft Copilot, have a conversation. You don't have to type, you can speak with it. And this is something that an extrovert to the most, introverted person can do. And for an introvert, it can even help you with conversation, but ask it questions. Talk about what Martin just said with, here are my strengths, here are my weaknesses. Practice with it. You'll become better. Ask it to tell you, to teach you. Take one article a week. Start at one article a week relevant to ChatGPT, OpenAI, how to prompt, things like that. In addition, start at one article a week, one conversation, advance every Tuesday, Thursday, to the point to where every day you're investing in yourself, because you would be surprised how quickly you're really going to start grasping this. But again, we're getting to a point, to, as we've been saying for 2 years, AI is not going to replace you anytime soon. It's the person who is skilled with AI, who is literate in AI, who can even do your job as good as you can, who's going to replace you. Don't let fear cripple you or paralyze you, but you do have to take that first step and, use these tools, set a schedule. It can help you build a schedule and follow it. Stick to it, because by the end of 2025, you could be an expert in some tool, some way, some method of using AI, that you'll be shocked at what it can do for you, your future career, or your current career, but you have to start.
Let's Let's end with ChatGPT and try something, okay? Would you help me become better at critical thinking? And I'd like to develop a lesson plan to improve my skills in critical thinking.
Absolutely. Developing critical thinking skills is a great goal. Let's start by focusing on a few key areas: understanding logical reasoning, analyzing arguments, and evaluating evidence. We can create a lesson plan with activities and exercises to strengthen each area. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great. And I want to finish a show I'm on right now, and we'll get back to this. So put a marker in this. I look forward to working with you on building my own critical thinking skills.
Great! Enjoy your show, and we can dive into critical thinking whenever you're ready. Just let me know.
And Justin, I did that impromptu. We did not plan to do it. I do want to end and let people know we've got one-on-one training we offer. We've got consulting if you want to work with your team, all the way out to if you want to have a custom AI system built internally for your business, the coding. We've got people on the team that can do that. So check the links below. We're available for resources, and we'd love to help you, your business, your career, your team, your association have that competitive edge and keep it. And that's something I love working with, Justin, empowering people to keep their fierce competitive advantage in the workplace.
Absolutely.